Hello, Honoree. How are you?
I'm well.
You know, the best part about doing these videos is editing them because
Oh, is it? Okay.
I get to see the first few seconds every time and I just laugh out loud.
Yeah, because it's the voice, the woman says recording in progress. And then you have to give your permission. Like all of a sudden I'm gonna go, no, forget it. I'm out.
Yep. Just,
I suppose people do that, but
yeah, I don't, yeah, it's got to be like one of those things where, uh, what I don't want to be recorded. I'm just going to bail on this thing and like for like some type of work meetings or whatever. I don't know. I don't get it. I'm not going to, I promise not to sue you.
promise not to sue you. And
That's
it's
right.
live and we're being recorded. So it's here for all time.
That's it.
It can be presented in a court of law.
That's right. We
But
do
who
need to
has
come
time
up,
for that?
we need like a bloopers reel.
We do.
At the end of the year, we can just make a big bloopers reel about all the crazy stuff that happens when we hit record that the public doesn't see.
That's right. Are they gonna see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Excellent.
so how are things going?
Things are great. Things are
Yeah.
great. I'm working on my next book. I've got one in the hopper, one in the
In
hopper
the
ready to
hopper, meaning
go.
like you're getting ready to publish it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So April 3rd, the best-selling book formula, write a book that will make you a fortune, is coming. And I'm working on write your first nonfiction book, which is a primer for first-time authors.
I can't wait to hear more about the premise of that book because obviously you have such a prolific following for, I don't know if I can use the word prolific in that instance, but you have such a strong, dedicated following to the You Must Write Your Book,
Yeah.
right, series.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the first question that pops into some people's minds is what's the difference between that and the write your first nonfiction book?
In You Must Write a Book, I make the case for why everyone should write and publish a book. I don't get too much into the when to write this and when to write that and how to complete the arc of a nonfiction book. And I had written a blog post last year, so in 2022, right as we write this last year, that was just kind of a formula. Like in chapter 1, write about this, and in chapter 2, write about that, and in chapter 3, write about this, and write an 8 chapter book. And I used the first book in the Prosperous Writer series, Prosperity for Writers. I use that as kind of an example of how someone could put together a book, kind of remove one of the blocks, like where,
Hmm.
what goes where in a book. And Kent Sanders said, you got to love an author who gives another author a book to write, right? Only another author can really do that. But he said this would make a great book. This would have been a great thing for me to have when I was first writing a book,
Hmm.
just to kind of remove one of the big obstacles
Hmm.
um, in the book writing process. There are lots of obstacles, but that's one of the big ones. That might be the big ones. What goes
Right.
where in a book and why? And then how do you put it in there? So the difference between You Must Write a Book and Write Your First Nonfiction Book is in You Must Write a Book, I tell you why you must write it and what are the benefits of writing a book. And I get a little tiny bit into writing, publishing, and marketing from a very broad perspective. Write Your First Nonfiction Book is prescriptive.
Right.
In chapter 1, you know,
So you
in
really
chapter
provide
2,
like a format for them
I
to do
do.
or like a
Yes,
guide.
I've a process, a formula, a format, a recipe, whatever you want to call it, so that someone can say, all right, I'm not going to overthink it too much in chapter 1. I'm just going to encourage my readers, because that's really what chapter 1 is for. And you actually did that. And I'm about to segue like I'm Kelly Ripa right now. Okay. In this book, which is now out, you like it? It's like,
Yes.
so it's a graphic, except it's a real person doing it. Monetize Your Book with a Course. You actually do that. Your very first chapter is a bit of motivation, which is exactly what I think is the first thing to do in a nonfiction book, where you're wanting someone to gain pleasure or avoid pain. It's like they first have to feel like they can get to the other side and that it's going to be worth it. So the
Mm.
first chapter is a bit of motivation. And then it says you published a book, you can publish a course. And you make the case for why someone, if they have written a book, they can successfully publish a course.
Yeah.
And so you didn't necessarily follow the formula for the rest of the book. You didn't need to. You had, you have a doctorate. So you probably didn't need too much of a formula in there. However, you did touch on the finer points of the formula at different points in your book, which is really the name of the game, right? It's not making sure that chapter 2 is stories and examples. It's like, okay, but some people need that. It's like, I've noticed that some people who do the lifesavers from the Miracle Morning, like Hal gives an hour structure, and there are people that are like 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, right? They just go with it. And I tend to do that when I'm given a formula or a prescription. I tend to take the word of the expert until I get my, I'll use a Coast Guard term, my sea legs.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah.
Until I get kind of my wits about me and I kind of understand the lay of the land or the sea or whatever, right? I'm going to mix my metaphors, I'm sure, as one would do, until I really kind of have a feel for it. And then I can color outside the lines. Then I can design my own, right? Some people cook by feel, dash of this, a cup of this, right? And I'm more like, oh no, that's really not going to work. I'm really nervous about coloring outside the lines. So my book is for people who want a process and want to follow the process and may at some point then trust, well, maybe chapter 2 could be chapter 4, or maybe chapter 3 is going to be 2 chapters after all, right? You can make it your own when you have some direction. It's like providing someone with a template for something like an email.
Sure.
I'm so much better when someone sends me a template than when I'm staring at a blank screen with a cursor blinking at me. It's like, oh gosh, I have to create something from literally nothing, as opposed to creating something from something. It's easier to create something from something than it is to create something from nothing.
Right. I love that. Yeah, you're I'm the same way. When you show me a way to run, I can run much faster than if I have to figure it out for myself, right? It's like it's just much easier on you. And I think that really just kind of gives them some relief. It's like a baseline, right? It's like, hey, look, you can work straight from here. I've used that approach to do email marketing. I've used that approach for, I mean, even the book, right? So I could written my book in a completely different format. And then when I talked to you and Karen, I was like, hey, how do I like get this thing anywhere close to like edit ready and ready for a proofreader? And it's like, oh, well, the first thing you need to do is make it look like a book. It's like in a Google document right now,
Right.
So the template that you offer in the publishing PhD course, that's what I used to publish the book.
Right, to make it look like a book, right? It doesn't have this formula in it from write your first nonfiction book, but we're really off topic for our conversation. I mean, I have to say, you've really deflected the I released a new book conversation back to what I'm working on. So let's circle back.
I'm good at that, right? Should have been a lawyer.
Or a doctor.
The doctor.
Could have been I just wanted to say doctor.
My mom used to, when I graduated with my doctorate, she's like, my son, the doctor. And we start laughing. And now she's like, my son, the author.
Yeah. It's an author doctor. So proud.
Keep stacking them up. Lawyers next.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Now, when are you going to law school, Lucas?
You know what she never said? My son, the sailor.
Oh.
Although
proud in a different way.
Yeah,
proud more quietly. Proud more quietly. A little more quiet on the proud of the sailor. So I loved this book.
Oh, well, thank you.
I've spent some quality time with Monetize Your Book with a course.
Yes, you did.
And I am happy to say it's out. I'm sad to say it was not out 10 years ago. Right. It would have been helpful, Lucas, if you'd gotten your act together like a decade ago. Thanks Thanks for procrastinating.
Dragging my
Um,
feet.
dragging your feet. I think the thing I like most about this is that you do what I think anyone who is working on writing a book or doing a course would benefit from, and that is you take complex ideas and you make it so that anyone can follow the direction. So when you're creating your course from your book, you probably, not you, but the royal you, right?
Mhm.
Took some time to really think through, gosh, I am kind of squishing down into a small package a whole lot of stuff. Education, experience, knowledge,
Sure.
da 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 da, da, right?
Yeah.
Um, making it so that someone can pick up the book and be successful. So when you're putting together your course, the thing that I really liked, to kind of go granular is now anyone who wants to turn their book into a course can go, gosh, where do I start? What do I start with? Right. And it's like, okay, we start with your curriculum serves your learners. Oh, wait a minute.
Yep.
What's a learner?
Yep.
And how do we identify them? And then what do you want from the course? What are the goals and the objectives of the course? And then you just get into like, how do I record video? How do I record audio? What's the equipment that I need? Where do I get it? How much is it going to cost? Do I just drop it like it's hot, or do I drip the content, right? And so you really kind of break it down step by step. So, and what I thought was interesting was in reading the book, anytime I had a question, it was almost next. It was almost the next thing that you answered,
That's funny.
which was great. And I have courses. I
Yes.
didn't come into it like I have my first book and I have no course and I'm going to create a course. I have courses, but have been developing courses in the process of walking alongside you as you created this book, which I just thought was great.
Yeah, I really tried to take and this part of this is just I think my background as an engineer. Um, it's just that like everything was logic based, so I tried to make it like this logical flow of
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
But I actually outlined this book in a course first. So I took the perspective of outlining the book
Mm-hmm.
like I would outline a course. And when you
Mm-hmm.
outline a course, just like I say in the book, it's like, what does this person need to know to achieve
Be
whatever out?
successful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So that just kept me really focused on making sure that I put in the things that they must know, but nothing more, nothing less, and
Yeah.
created this logical flow of like ideas, kind of like
Yeah.
story mapping, right?
Yes.
And in a way, I think when I did that, one of the nice outcomes of that was exactly that. Like you see something and you go, oh, wait a second, that gives me a thought. And
Uh-huh.
then you have the opportunity to answer that question for yourself. So the questions that occurred to you when you were reading it are the same ones that occurred to me while I
Yeah.
was writing it, right?
Yes.
That kind of makes
Yes.
sense.
Yes.
The other thing is, and this was actually kind of hard for me. You touched on this a little bit. It wasn't hard to do. I guess it was just like kind of I didn't acknowledge that I was doing it at first, and I'm grateful that I did, and I didn't figure that out later. But I think sometimes people get overwhelmed with trying to answer all the questions, do all the things, put all the information in.
Yeah.
And I knew that that would actually be detrimental to a person attending the course or reading the book. So, like, picking the top three things was not easy to do for like the recording, right? It's like, well, then I just thought, like, well, how do I usually encounter this with people when I'm in client work or coaching?
Yeah.
And it's almost always like, look, man, everyone's got the same expectation. They don't want to spend a fortune. They see people on YouTube with $5,000 camera rigs. Um, do I need a
Right.
$5,000 camera rig? No, you do not. You need to spend about $170. It's like,
Or do
um,
I need to go into a studio, or do I need to have
right.
a team, or right? It's like all those
Yep.
questions. And then when you get, it's one, two, three, many, right?
Yep.
You go, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Oh, I can't do that. I'm out.
Exactly. So I just wanted to put things in that, like, if you pick this book up and you didn't have external resources, you could build your course. That was kind of like the focus was keep it simple, provide them a handful of options, but then stop right there because I could write a whole book on recording gear or learning management systems or whatever. That wouldn't serve the person who really needs this book.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
you're
glad you
welcome.
picked up on that.
What did I do? Oh, okay.
Because I mean, some
You're
of those
welcome.
things I really hoped people would experience that in the book.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear that you did acknowledge, like, recognize that.
Oh. Yeah. So tell me why. Let's kind of back up a little bit and tell me why, because I think you're working on 6 or 7 other books now. I gotcha.
Yeah,
Got the fever. Um,
definitely.
yeah. Give it again. Give
Yeah,
it
give me
again.
more. Hit me again.
Yeah. So why was this the first book?
It's kind of that's actually a really good question. Karen Hunsinger right now is laughing. She's got her head back, laughing at the sky because we were 3/4 of the way through another book when I stopped and said, "Hold on a second. I think we're doing the wrong book first."
Yep. Yep.
Right? So that one was an engineering book that's not for engineers. And I had been working on that thing for years. So logically, like, or just naturally, I was like, I have to finish this. But the more I thought about the business case for the book, the more I realized, A, that's not who I'm serving best right now.
Mhm.
B, that's not where the greatest need is, like,
Right.
for the people I'm serving or the people out there that I'm interacting with.
Right.
And C, just because I've been working on this for a long time doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. What I need to do is focus on what's most important in my life and in my business right now for helping other people. And that immediately shifted me to this book. And then that the idea of the course was the key part. But in our September strategy session, I think it was like the week leading up to that, I had started to get this like I guess this thought that I was almost where I needed to be with the topic, but I wasn't quite landing on both feet. And when we had the strategy session, and I said, "What I'm trying to answer is what do people really need, not just what would they find interesting." Um, all of our conversations were around the fact that people needed to not just build a course, they needed one that they could make money with. They didn't just want to publish a book,
Right.
they needed one they could make money with. And it was like,
Right.
oh, okay, so there's this linkage between
Yeah.
the book and the course. And I
Yeah.
don't know why it took me a while to like grasp onto that, but it immediately was like a flashback. Every client I've ever worked with was saying the same thing. I wrote this book and now I'm using it in my business. And this is one of
Yeah.
the ways I can make money with that expertise. And I'm like, and then of course, we had like a 2-second conversation about how to title it once we had that discussion, and your brilliance shined through.
I think it was actually very simple. Thank you. I'll take it. However, um, that's what I think people can do is overcomplicate things.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
maybe I'm overthinking it. If you are someone who often says, maybe I'm overthinking it, you're probably overthinking it.
Well, I
I'm gonna
mean,
go out on a limb.
that
I'm gonna go out
that
on the
was
skinny branches.
yeah, I mean, that was a big part of it. I was like, I think I'll feel better once I have that North Star, because I was getting ready to just write a course about or write a book about building books or building courses. And it really wouldn't have served the right audience in the right way if I had done that. And I think that was really like kind of that final, this is why I
Yeah.
need to write this book right now, was to serve this particular audience, which was my intent the whole time. But I think you just, when you have someone and other people in your life, because there were 6 of us sitting around that table talking about these ideas,
Yeah.
that it's just super powerful to have
Yeah.
that input from everyone going, no, dude, that's the one you need to write. And by the way, that's the one you've been talking about the whole time. You just haven't recognized it.
Right. I wonder if you're gonna write monetize your course with a book next.
You know what? I have not considered that, but you just probably came up with a brilliant idea. Yeah. Well,
Because
I don't
I
know.
think what will happen is people will have courses.
Just taking a note. Don't mind me,
only an
sticky note.
author only an author can give another author a book to write. So you're welcome.
Thank you, Kent.
Right. Yeah. And the Academy Award goes to Kent Sanders, world award winning ghostwriter. uh, people will come to you and build their courses and then go, how do I turn this into a book? What's the logical way to do that?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm already getting that question. And you know where I saw that the first time was in when I stood up the Facebook and LinkedIn groups just to try and get an art
Mhm.
together and get a little bit of
Mhm.
interest and find out
Mhm.
some questions from people.
Yeah.
And half the people that came, I asked a question not expecting the answers to be what they were, but I just said, "Hey, tell me about your book and your course." And half the people were like, "Don't have a book yet, have a course, getting ready to write a book." And I was like, "Oh, didn't expect that answer."
Yeah. Well, I'll
Very
be
cool.
interested to see what you come up with.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see, won't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny how a project like this just breathes life into all these other things. I mean, this has already inspired 2 other books.
The fun never stops. Yeah. So well, let's stay with this one just one second, but I do want to come back to what the other books are, because I wasn't kidding when I thought you probably were writing 7 more books. If someone is an author and they're just overwhelmed with the course process, and this is a question I wish I would have been able to ask you before. Fortunately, I had some angels cross my path and they were like, you will do this course, I will help you,
That was
because
awesome of them.
otherwise that would not have happened. um let's just do rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Do I have to have a big setup? Do I have to spend thousands of dollars on a setup?
No.
Do I have to do every module with long videos with graphics and music intros and outros and all those sorts of things?
No.
Can I do a voiceover of a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Can I turn a webinar that I've done into a course?
Yes.
Um, can it can it really be something that I monetize almost instantly? And if so, what's my path to doing that? If I have a book, how do
Yeah.
I then, what are my steps for taking the content of my book, and even while I'm creating my course, earn some cash money?
Yeah. So there's 2 parts in the book that address that. One chapter, and I'm just make sure I get the right chapter number here.
All right.
Is chapter 2 on developing your curriculum.
Okay.
Outlines the 5 key points that I prescribed for building a good course foundation.
Okay.
Right. So if you have a book already, you're like leagues ahead of most people because you've already gone through the process of creating
Yeah.
like a logical flow of info and you know what the people need. And so you can move toward the curriculum development using those 5 points and justify the existence of a course. Now, that bleeds into a pre-sale. So it's specific to your question about can you make money while you're developing? Yes. Now, you'll hear these called pre-launches, pre-sale. I like
Yeah.
to call them pre-development launches because it really drives the point home that you can do this without all your content being developed yet.
Yep.
Right. I think when
Yep.
people hear pre-sale, they're thinking, oh, okay, I'm just going to put a pre-sale up and see if people want to buy it. And it's like, yes, but there's a little more to it than that, right?
Oh, wait, there's more, right?
Yes, but wait, there is more. You do want to walk into it with some curriculum developed, and I prescribe 2 chapters, right?
Yeah.
One first chapter of the course would be like, welcome to the course. Here's what it's about. Here's why it's important to
Yeah.
you.
Which
And
is
this,
extra simple, right? Like
yeah,
anyone can do that.
super fast. Yep.
Yes.
Super duper fast. And then the second one is like the first chapter of topic relevant information. That's it.
Which, if it was monetize your book with a course,
Mm.
it would be, you published a book, you can publish a course. So you could
Yeah,
literally do the
absolutely.
introduction. So I'm just wanting to help authors,
Yep.
in this process, right?
Yep.
To really understand, because you're the expert. And so anyone thinks that an expert can do things easily, and they can,
Right.
and they might have forgotten the learning curve. So I'm still a bit of a neophyte, even though I have several courses. I now feel like, oh, this is what I would have liked to have known before, because I can take a book and I can say, okay, I wrote an introduction, so I can do an introduction to the course based on the introduction to the book.
Right.
And you can legitimately say, here's what I'm going to cover in my course. And then the next thing would be you published a book so you can publish a course. And here's why.
Right.
And
Yep.
it doesn't need to be super long or involved or any of those things. And then you have the two things that you can use to put up. Now I'm going to use the term beta because that's what I call it, right? Is
Sure.
I write.
Yeah.
And we talked about this in another video, which we'll reference in the show notes here, it's the three-legged stool, right?
Yep.
So we talked about the order of operations where you can say, okay, I want to write a book and have a course and have a companion product. And so you write the outline for your book and course. Then you put up your sales page for your beta of the course. And then you go, oh, snap. Now I need to write all this stuff down and create the course, which is what happens. It's a little bit of built-in accountability.
Yep.
But you can, if you are a little squirrely or want to make sure you've got your I's dotted and your T's crossed, you can create your introduction, which could be a quick 2 or 3 minute video. You can create your overview of your first lesson or your chapter 1, which in this case would be you published a book, you can publish a course. And so you have a sales page that says, I have a course coming. It's the Monetize Your Book with a course, or in my case, it will be write your first nonfiction book. Although I am not putting out a course in conjunction with that right at the moment. I might change my mind by the end of this paragraph. Right. But I could say, here's the outline for my course and go put up a sales page for the course and have it at beta. Have it ready for the beta and say, you know what, in 3 months time or 2 months time or 6 months time or 2 weeks time or next Tuesday, whatever, right? I'm going to launch the beta. And when I launch the beta, what the learners will get are those first 2 chapters.
Right. Yep.
And so I did that with You Must Market Your Book. I did book marketing mastery, put up the sales page, sold some courses. And while I was selling the courses, I was writing the book. And then when the first draft of the manuscript was done, send that kid over to Karen. And then I spent a couple of weeks just like focused on developing the course and just getting the course ready to go.
Yes.
And the course paid for the book.
Isn't that great?
So I'm in the black. I'm in the black really before I even had finished writing chapter 2. So I was in the black on the book and the course and the workbook, right?
Yeah.
Within a few days. And it really is that simple. So if you're trying to overthink it, or if you are overthinking it, or you're trying to think yourself out of it, maybe lean into what the sort of experienced person am saying. I mean, I've made a lot of money from my courses, so I'm not going to downplay that, but I would not consider myself a course creation expert. I am always asking questions, most recently of Lucas. Lucas,
it's a
can
fair
you come in,
exchange.
Lucas? Lucas, come in, Lucas.
I'm doing the same thing with books, guys. Don't let her fool you.
But you can lean into the expertise that you have in books and in courses,
Right.
and with experts. So if you hear Lucas say, oh, it's not that hard, it's really fast, it's really easy, you just do this and you just do this and it's totally fine and like whatever, and then the money just flies into your pants, right? It's like, this is the money, like you need new pants because your pants are full of money, right? And you kind of go, but he's the expert. Like how easy is it for me to do it? I think that's the thing that your book squares away, right? Or we get squared away,
I like that.
We're going to get squared away.
Yeah.
I know you like that. That's why I'm using the term. Not so new. Anyway, I think it's just really helpful for people to understand that if you're a new person and you have a book coming out and you want to turn the manuscript into a course, or you're working on a book, or you're already an author and you're like, wow, a course would be logical. I could probably impact more people and make more income if I had a course, but it just seems like this big overwhelming thing, kind of like writing and publishing a book, that you can lean into the experts that are here to serve you. And you do have a Monetize Your Book with a course, do you not?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you covers everything that's in the book and more.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's what a course do.
That's, if you do it right, that's what it can do, right?
Yeah. So you have a wonderful complement of courses, actually, I would be remiss if I did not mention, they are on page 123 of Monetize Your Book with a Course. So he has, in no particular order, Monetize Your Book with a Course, build your online course with Thinkific, which is your LMS, learning management system of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Just a simple build your online course,
Yeah.
which is kind of a what would you call that? Did you call that an amuse bouche or a snack or a salad? Like, where do we put this in the meal of courses?
It's a full-on course.
Oh, it is also a meal, everyone.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
also a meal, and
Okay.
it is specific. It is not as exclusive as having a book before you walk in. So you could take that course with an idea, right? Or you could take that
Wonderful.
course. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And then to kind of round it out, you build your online course with Thinkific is one course, but then there is Learn Thinkific, which I've had Thinkific for years. I know enough to be dangerous, but when you know the finer points, what Learn Thinkific, the course showed me, was not dissimilar to when I go to the Apple store and the kid pulls out the iPhone and he goes and he does like things. I'm like, what was that? What'd you do right there? Right? Did you know that you could use your phone as like if you forget your
Right.
glasses at home, you can use it to blow up text with a flashlight. And so it's
Yep.
like having a magnifying glass with you. It's not just a calculator and a camera and a way to access your social media and your email.
That's right.
There are lots of really cool, nifty tricks
Mm-hmm.
that Learn Thinkific can do. And so when you understand things like order bumps or bundles
Yep.
and like what the flow is like, how fun is it to say you can buy Monetize Your Book with a course, but if you want this other course that goes with it, like you can add in an order bump or you can bundle those courses
Yep.
together when you're creating them. So if you have, like I do, publishing PhD, book marketing mastery, and building $1 million book business, that's kind of the arc. So you can get
Yep.
all three of those courses together, or you can buy them one or two together, right? And so
Yep.
it's really fun to learn how the LMS functions
Yeah.
from an instructor standpoint to
Right.
create a great student experience.
Yeah, and the whole point of that course was to make it easy for people so that they wouldn't be intimidated by the software. Because I think they're like, people look at learning management systems and they're like, dude, I don't know if I want to or if I can do this. And the beauty of Thinkific is it was designed so that you can, but there
Right.
is still a whole lot in there, which is nice because that's what you're
Oh
paying
my
for.
gosh.
You get all that
Yes.
value out of it. So I just
Yes.
wanted to make demo video style course where it's like there's no fluff. We get right into showing you exactly how to do something,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
you can follow it step by step to get the outcome you want. And it takes away all your risk and concern. You don't have to be an expert. You've got one right there next to you, basically.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it's
Thank
like
you.
I love learning, and I love learning
Well,
the
and you're really good with Thinkific too. Everyone I've given it to, they're really good with the system because it's an intuitive design. I just had this conversation with a client yesterday. It was like, he's like, I'm not sure this is as intuitive as they think it is. And I'm like, have you used some of the other LMSs? And then when you go to some of these other platforms, you're like, oh, okay, this is,
right,
you
but
know,
it is
it's more intuitive than other
it's more
platforms.
intuitive, and it's also complicated. It's also
It's a
complex.
foreign land to people that have
Yes,
never
it
been in
is.
an LMS.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so figuring out sometimes where to
Right.
go and what to do,
Sure.
having a course that'll teach you those cool, and just don't you want to know, like,
Right.
don't you want to know how
Yeah.
fast your Ferrari can go?
Hex yeah, man.
Like,
I pay somebody to drive me that fast.
also a fine idea.
Let's go. Right. It's like,
Also a fine idea. Yeah. But
as long as
also
we
it's
survive,
kind
this
of,
is going to be great.
you can figure it out. You can use the help system, but you
Yeah.
can also take a course that will shorten your learning curve. So anyway, I want to, we're running out of time, which the time always flies so fast. I just want to say thank you for writing the book, for taking the
Thank you.
time to write the book, and congratulations on writing the book. Welcome to the club,
I appreciate it. Thank
author
you for
club.
helping me make that possible because without your guidance, it would have been much more much, much, much more difficult to do that. And I
I
already
know.
had your course, so I was prepared and I was going to be awesome because of that course. But it's just so much nicer to be able to discuss these things. So for
It's
those that
fun.
don't have the live Q&As, you might want to get those.
Checks in the mail.
Just
No, that's
saying.
actually, well, let me just say that about having a course. I'll say one last thing about having a course.
Mhm.
From an instructor perspective, I have courses and then I have an option for people to join the Q&As who want them. And that is my favorite part,
Yep.
is that one day a month when I do all of my Q&As back to back and my students tune in from all over the world and ask their questions and talk about their books or their courses or book marketing or whatever it is that they're doing.
Yep.
It's super fun. You will want to have a live component, not just for tax reasons, but just for interactivity reasons. Yes, you can have a completely virtual course and you never have to talk to any of your students, but I have to say that's one of my favorite things is interacting with everyone.
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
truly enjoy it.
I don't teach a class that doesn't have a live component to it right now just because I enjoy it so much. I'm not saying that everyone should do this, but I enjoy it so much that I didn't want a course without it, which is kind of funny. It's like I don't want to take this away from not only them but me. It's like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that part of it. So,
right.
and if
Which
I
is
may,
why I haven't firmed up that I'm going to do write your first
right.
nonfiction book Q&A, because then I would have 5 Q&As that I'm doing every month, and then I would have to just not do anything else, which I guess would be fine. I don't know. I really like it. I'll have to
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
I did want to drop one thing in before we cut.
Of
And that
course.
is that when you were talking about the pre-sale,
Yeah.
one of the ways I kind of put this together in the chapter is I just created a list of 10 things to do to make it really easy. Like you don't have to read 5 pages because it is 5 pages worth of content. You don't have to read 5 pages and try and pick the points out of those 5 pages. I
Yeah.
put the whole list of 10 items right there in the front of the chapter and then explain them in detail afterwards. So that if
Chapter
you
10, right?
chapter
No.
7 in course marketing, it's called reduce your risk and generate
Oh,
interest with a pre-sale.
right.
And I use a 10-point approach to all my pre-sales as a general rule of thumb. So if you're looking for a
Yeah.
quick guideline, those 10 points do that.
Yeah, this is gold.
Yeah, and those first 5, by the way, are the same first 5 I talked about in the beginning of the video about like making sure you've got the right foundation set for your
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
So it's only 5 more.
Well, you also cover them again in
Yep.
chapter 10, right? They're
Yep.
bulleted in chapter 10. So
That's how important they are.
that's how important they are.
You got to
And
get
when
them.
you follow them, you too will be a successful author, course creator person.
That's right.
Yes.
That's the goal.
Yes. Well, thank you, Lucas. Thank you for sharing your experience
Thank you,
and
Honoree.
your knowledge and your expertise. And we'll see everybody next time. But before we go, like us, share us, ring the bell, check out the show notes, and leave a comment. Let us know how we're doing, how you're
That's
doing,
right.
all the
Yeah.
doing.
Make sure you guys subscribe because you'll be notified anytime something new comes out. You want to hear something fascinating that happened to me yesterday?
Okay, yes.
Related to that point. So
Yeah.
every time someone signs up for a new account with me, just like with EBMC or with
Mhm.
your academy, your school, I ask the question, who can I thank for introducing you to me?
Okay.
And guess what my response was for the very first time I got this response yesterday? YouTube.
Oh,
And I went, that's cool.
that is cool. Thanks, YouTube.
Yeah, thank you, YouTube.
Yeah. God bless YouTube.
But if you guys subscribe, you can get those notifications and become real active with other people that are interested in the same things you are and have conversations with us and all this stuff. So,
The interwebs are not always the best thing in the world, but sometimes they're the best thing in the world.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Awesome.
awesome.
All right. We'll see you next time, everybody.
Thanks, guys.